longing. We knew that it was more than just a surface level itch that we could satisfy with attending church or reading a verse a day, or doing our Bible gateway. Is that what they call it now? Is that the app, like the U version? Doing our U version, ticking off our devotions for the day. It's more than that. There was something more than that. I don't mean heaping on more things for you to do, your big morning routine, but it wasn't merely just those external things. There was something inside that we were longing for, and it was finding its expression in lesser things that were actually corrupting us. So the church, we are called to image God, right? You've heard the term Imago Dei, Latin for the image of God, and that's our high calling, right there in Genesis. We were made in the image of Elohim, the spiritual. He's called us to greatness. He wants us to be like him, and he's forming us in his image. But it's not only a personal thing. You're the image of God. You're the image of God. The church, collectively, as it represents God on earth, is supposed to be the image of God. So I'm not getting into the Trinity today, because we'll have afternoon service and a week-long conference, and we still won't get anywhere. But there is, within God himself, there is a mystery of union in the Trinity. There's a community, there's submission, there's leadership, there's no complaints, there's a working together, and yet they're not three separate entities. It's the one God, but in three persons. You see what I'm saying? We're not getting into this right now. But within God himself, there is a beautiful expression, the prime expression of love. It's not just something he does, it's who he is. And he exemplifies it within himself. He doesn't just love, he is love. It's John 15 to 17, Jesus' prayer in those last moments really exemplifies the, I in you and you in me and they in us. And it's beautiful when we see what this community can look like. But I can't help but think that if the church did its job in imaging God like that, this beautiful community of distinct difference but one, co-equal irrespective of race or gender or socioeconomic background or any dividing factors, if we just were together in this senseless love, that we would be imaging God, that would be irresistible. I'd want to be part of that. And when I look here, Dave, what you've done, what you're doing in your inclusiveness. If you're a human, you're invited. That's the litmus test. I'm sure animals are invited too, but to partake in Jesus, the inclusivity. Like I grew up Roman Catholic, and it was very Vietnamese, Chinese, a little bit of Italian in the Flemington area, and then I moved here and my whole life became Filipino. Everything's Filipino, and like nothing wrong against Filipinos obviously, but I had to uncover a lot of racial stuff, being not Philo myself, which I have to remind myself sometimes. I think this is a topic for another day, maybe last week. We'll travel back in time and it's not on my notes. I've got to stick to this because I tend to go for a few hours at a time before I breathe. But in God, there's this beautiful mystery of community and love, and it's exemplified in his very makeup, not just a character or something he does. It is what he is. And in that, we are actually invited in. I heard it posited this way, which you could say is heresy, but it's beautiful at the same time. The Trinity and who God is and his desire for us to be in him, it's almost like the word Trinity is reductive. It's not enough. He wants us to be so in him that the word Trinity doesn't make sense anymore because there's more than three. It's us as well. Heresy, okay? But it's beautiful, isn't it? That's how much he wants us in him. That's how much he desires to have us. Now, you don't have to look your part to fit in when it comes to God. You can just be your broken, messed up, incomplete, not yet there self, and you're the same as the guy who's been doing it for 100 years and has all the accolades and achievements. God just wants us. He wants us. And so the church is called to a really high standard when it comes to what it means to image God, to be God's image. If we could always remember that and just stay there, not graduate to elitism as we learn more. I remember getting saved and I started learning about these theological concepts and talking about like, election, and if you were that guy who could talk about election and predestination without kind of stumbling your words, like, Raj is so smart, and I've got a bit of an ego trip off that, I am smart, I know God, about God. I knew how to read a textbook, I knew how to regurgitate things I was learning, but the knowing God, whole other thing, knowing Him, the relationship. So we must not graduate to elitism as we learn more, or legalism as we get power, where we enforce the standards. But we're a community of love and grace. If we could be that culture of love, inclusivity, transparency, if you could just be who you are without having to put on a face and it's church, I'm gonna tuck in, I'm gonna judge my gluttony or something. If I could just be myself. My wife's disappointed now. She's unwell today, she's in bed. I'm sorry about that. She has to deal with it all the time, and I can just be vulnerable and transparent. It's beautiful. But if we could be that culture where it's safe to be known, and it's natural to know, to seek the other, to connect with them in really deep, amazingly beautiful ways. Not talking about sex yet. If we could be that, I think a lot of the sexual misappropriations and things that go wrong would be rooted out. If we could find deep love and community and acceptance and tolerance and care, if we could just be who we are in our broken, messed up selves and be completely embraced and loved, I think a lot of our other longings will have nowhere to go for their expression. Our deepest longings would be satisfied in God and verified in the community He's given us. And with a place to receive that love and give that love and acceptance and validations, the brokenness that drives a lot of our decisions and our activities wouldn't exist. I hate fake ads, okay? When it says like 20% off and you go there and it's been marked up, crossed out, and just brought back down, and they're lying? Really, really hate it, because I'm a bargain hunter, so when I say like any percent off, I think it's an Indian thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a discount, let's buy it. Don't even need it, but it's 20% off, Bunnings is another one. I went to Bunnings recently and they had a safe there. It's like 250 kilos. And it's designed to be bolted into one of your closets and bolted into the ground, and you put your passport and stuff there. And it was a few $1,000s. I didn't even know Bunnings sold it. It was $20. And so that's now in my budget, right? For a safe. I won't tell you where we put our passports, but you can easily take over our identities if you need to. And I'm like, $20, this is amazing. But it was missing the keys. Big nice sign, keys missing, $20. The safe had no keys. So the whole purpose of it is now functionally useless. They could pay me $20, I still wouldn't take it. 250 kilos, how am I gonna lift it? I don't lift, bro, So it had been completely stripped of its purpose. I hate fake ads, and here's the point. That's what I see when I observe most marriages. It looks good on Insta, but at close quarters, if they can get vulnerable enough, and I can seek enough, and I can get in there and learn from them and come under them, which is very rare. People are very reclusive. If I can get close enough to see what's really going on, it's like a safe with no keys. It's unsafe. Sorry, on the spot, I didn't script that one. But it's pretty dull. It's not attractive. Why would I want that? I have no problem understanding why people don't want to get married these days. It makes sense. it's not a goal for many people because the models haven't done a good job with it. I'm not using marriage and sex interchangeably here, just making another point that relates. People don't care for marriage in general, or they delay it senselessly. And it breaks my heart because I love marriage. Sorry, I love my wife, not marriage. I love being married to Joyce. I love you, babe. Get well. Woo. Shout out to my wife. But it's not just the concept of marriage or being with another. It's her specifically, to know her, to love her, to be known by her, to just be myself. And like, she's the one. You know when you buy something online and you just go to the 1-star review? It's not like 5 million 5-star reviews. Oh, what did the 1-star person say? My wife leaves that review. She knows, she knows what's really going on, under the packaging and everything. But it's beautiful because I can just be myself without pretense. Like, it's really hard to fake it in marriage. They see everything. You can't hide. No one has, well, some people do, but most of us don't have the psychological defenses to fake it for years and years and years. Like, vulnerability is commanded at some point. And the beautiful thing is the earlier you do it, the better everything works. A lot of marriages don't get there, or they get there and there's so much damage caused on the way, and then there's so much recovery work before the marriage can even be fruitful and purposeful. I'm not just talking about kids. But it's not a goal for many, and that deep commitment that marriage is, where it provides a safe place to be vulnerable and to give of yourselves to each other fully. Yes, now I'm talking about sex. Why wait if we're already doing it? If we can just reduce it to an act, a mere act, and we can dress it up. Oh yeah, intimacy, it makes me feel good, blah blah blah. Why would you bother with marriage? Doesn't, like, for most people, like, that's the only purpose of marriage. And if you're getting it anyway, why bother, right? So most people, I don't want to say most people, but our generation has been trained and acculturized to not really care that much about marriage. So we have this physical, sexual self, and it has needs. We were made this way. It's not something to run away from. It's not something to hide or cover or be scared of. We were made this way. Our Creator intimately designed us to have these longings that are emotional, are spiritual, but sexual. It's a part of our makeup. It's who we are. And it's beautiful. Now, our culture tells us, go to school, and then go to uni, and then get the job, and then get the house, and then when you're 40, then get married and fulfill that need. That's crazy, right? I have stories of my grandparents being married at 13, 14, And I'm like, that's also crazy. But at that age, we've got to think, right? And I don't want to get into the age of consent debate here, but they are fully capable adults who wake up at 4 in the morning to take the bull out to do his little run and start picking up the chicken eggs, and they're cleaning up the duck, whatever, and harvesting fruits and veggies and sugarcane before the sun comes up. They know how to run the family business, the farm. They're feeding their younger siblings. I know 30-year-olds who can't do that. So that maturity, I'm not saying let's change any ages and stuff. I'm just saying our culture's changed and we delay maturity so long. But those needs, they're already here. Once we mature, women have a very obvious sign of their body kind of getting there. Men don't. It's really sad. And so a lot of us never get there. But we have these needs somewhere in the mid-teens. We're ready to go already. As you can see, evidenced by culture and the way that age group tends to be. We're primed already. But we have to wait and wait and wait and wait. What do you think happens in that time? I'm also like, I don't like telling people, get married. Yeah, get married at 18. The moment you turn 18, just get married. Not what I'm saying at all. Don't rush into it. Don't delay it, And obviously this message is a bit different for those who are single at the moment. I understand. You're equipped now for future seasons, hopefully. It's natural and it's beautiful to have those feelings as part of your makeup. But we have to work to understand that it was put there by God to be nurtured and protected and entered into in a way where it can thrive and have its fullest expression. There's a term, make-up sex. Oh yeah, the make-up sex was great. You know, you have a big fight, and then when you finally come together and it crescendos in this beautiful, deep connection. And I won't comment on that, but I would say that enjoying each other in a way that you know is blessed by God, it's amazing. It's so beautiful to be vulnerable to, and it's in the very act itself, which the ring symbolizes in some ways, that there's an entering into, literally in someone else's body. Like, how intimate can that be? And to envelop someone and to hold them inside. It's so beautiful. At the same time, it's a metaphor that God uses to express when Israel walked away from him. You've chased after harlots. You've joined yourself in that way. He uses sex as a metaphor to describe when they walked away from him. You've joined yourself in that way, in just a physical act, to someone who doesn't care and is just making money off your addiction and your weakness. God uses that as a metaphor because that's how he feels about us. That's what the metaphor of entering into Christ, to being in him. I'm not saying, oh, let's think about that every time you hear that. I'm just saying it's an apt metaphor for just how intimate it is. There's an entering in and a protective enveloping. Learning that from where I've come from and my understanding of sexuality is a big transition. To see that God has created this and blesses it and loves it and revels in it and enjoys its occurrence. I don't want to say enjoys watching it, but like, that sounds weird, but yeah, why not? It's his creation and he loves when we connect in that deep and beautiful way. It was put there by God to be nurtured, protected, entered into in a way it can thrive, and separate from that, you get cheap imitations. And I tell you, marriage is hard. I've broken bones in motorcycle accidents. On your spine, you've got these little things that stick out called the spinal process. I've snapped 8 of them. I needed my mum to wipe my butt as a grown man because I had spinal contortions and I couldn't move. Just the blessing of being able to do that for myself. I didn't realize how complicated, how much of the body's involved in just the cleanup squad. I've been through some stuff. It will take me 15 to 20 minutes to get to the toilet because of the crutches and it was just a mess. And I've been through some stuff emotionally. I've been through some stuff mental health wise. Marriage is harder. I don't want to throw it out there. Oh, marriage is so hard, so don't do it. That's not what I'm saying. Marriage is difficult, but it's a good hard. It's like working out. We all know working out's good for us. Who was I chatting to today? Vera, yeah. Vera has gone to the gym once, I believe. He had a bit of a chest workout a week ago and it still hurts. And that's just like marriage. It's a constant revealing of your own lack and a complete forgiveness and acceptance that matches it at the same time. It's so good. You can just be vulnerable and broken, messed up, lacking, and yet there's an acceptance and a tolerance and a care and a desire for you to grow and be better at the same time. So the pain is kind of matched with medicine of sorts. It's a good hard. But the hard bit is just always comes down to one or either partner, usually the male, in that kind of union, being a jerk. Having a pride that won't admit a mistake. I won't continue before we start revealing some marriage issues here. But I say it like this. Marriage is really, really easy. You just need to die to your own desires, destroy all your dreams, get rid of them, and completely focus on bettering the other. So easy. So easy. Don't need a book. Don't need all these books. That's the hard part though, isn't it? The dying to self. But if you just die to self, it really works. Probably 3 or 4 times in our marriage, I've had like an hour-long session of where like I've really, really died to self. And it's been all about her and just empowering her and letting her dream and flourish. And it felt so good. But then I felt left out because I'm like, hey, you should do that for me too. And she does all the time, but it's, you know, it's complicated. It's a learning process. It's a getting to know sex. It's not just an act, but it's a leading to culmination, and it's a springboard into so much more. Like sexuality is such a small part of who we are. I don't want to diminish it. It's beautiful, it's majestic, it's amazing, it's God-given, but it's not everything. It's not everything. And I even mean like the guilt that's associated with it. Put it at the cross, get up, let's walk free. And here's the sad thing. In the same way that marriage looks pretty blah from the outside sometimes, because the good examples are very few. Like, I don't want a good marriage. Like, oh, they love each other and their kids are cute. Haha. Like, I want to see this purposeful thriving that affects the community and is like a beacon of hope. I want something like, wow. And I said to myself before we got married, that's going to be us. That's going to be us. And life is hard. It's going to be us. I haven't lost that. In the same way that marriage looks pretty blur, the trailer is better than the movie. Doesn't mean it's true, but I feel the same sometimes about the church. A lot. And I'm careful when someone new comes to church and they want to follow Jesus. I make sure it's not this transactional moment where they said a prayer, got a Bible, all right, you're sweet. Because there's got to be an uncovering of their whole life and a rebuilding in Jesus. Every category of their life has to be reordered and reframed in who he is. That doesn't happen at the altar in 5 seconds. So I try to walk with them and stay with them because I don't want to see a transaction. I want to see transformation. I don't want to see a moment. I want to see a momentum. Wow, that was good. Tweet that. Yeah, I like that. I should write that down. I want them to see what following Jesus looks like. Because in the moment, they heard some songs and their message was really hitting them where it hurt, and they were vulnerable. And so there's this kind of like hyped up thing about it. But then really following Jesus is hard. Really dying to self and all your desires is hard. The process of discipleship is incredibly difficult. So I want them to know up front, this is what it is. And a lot of them go, oh yeah, no, I'm good then. And that's when discipleship starts. They've had an inkling and a desire, but because that little moment and saying that little prayer and getting their free Bible, I don't know if that's what God planned as like the moment of salvation. Write it in your journal, never forget it. Get a tattoo, 6th of the 6th, 03, that was me. He's calling us into a life of following him. So that little moment where they kind of did, almost did, their friend nudged them, it didn't happen, it happened, whatever. That's periphery to me. My priority is making sure they follow Jesus. And so I come alongside them and I start showing them what it's like, the good and the bad. The church has a lot of things messed up, but we're getting there. We're calling ourselves out on it, as you were doing earlier, and we're getting there. So I try to help them see that church, or they find out themselves sometimes, that church isn't a safe place to meet Jesus. I can't believe I have to say that. That's so messed up, right? So we are called to image God. We are called to be a place where they don't have to look the part, quick, smart, act like everything's okay, pretend they're okay, don't act weak, don't be vulnerable. They can just be their true selves. And in this way, a healthy sexual union is exemplified in the church. There was something in the book that released a lot in me when it talked about sexuality being a social sexuality and a genital sexuality. I was like, what? So I read it again, as you do when you say, what? And there's a part of us that has its expression in the physical sense. But sexuality is, the general word is like being a human, a person. We all have sexual connections, not genital connections, right? Sexual, male, female, and all that's in between, human. We have these connections with each other, these deep longings and these desires. And when we corrupt them and just do things the way we think should be done, we miss a lot. When we be fake and just act the part and just act like we're okay, we actually block other people off from knowing us, and we block ourselves off from being a vessel of prospering their life and their spirituality and their growth. The ads sometimes don't reflect the product when it comes to church. Yep. So Adam and Eve walk with God naked. First thing, just as they were, nothing to hide, pure and innocent. They didn't even know that they were naked. How cool is that? I know when I'm naked. I try to put clothes on as quick as I can for the sake of everyone in my family. But they didn't know they were naked. It was pure. It's their default state. They could see each other in all its glory, and there was no shame. The beauty of that intimacy and vulnerability was damaged, and we've been struggling with it ever since. I love the quote from this chapter. Upon their disobedience, sin distorts their vision, ironically, by opening their eyes. They saw, and that's what messed them up. They couldn't see properly ever again. Bit personal here, but has anyone looked in the mirror and felt shame? Just yourself, right? I'm a bit more accustomed to it now. It's just becoming the new norm. No, I'm joking, but there's a judgment, a self-judgment, a rehashing of what others might say. The whole beach bod thing. I know guys deal with this, and I know women have to deal with this in incredibly difficult ways of looking the part. I remember looking at this website, it was an Instagram page. I think it was this French woman, and it was like armpit liberation, and like we were shaving and waxing, like for what? And so she was just like, yeah, no more. And so they would glamorize that view. Wasn't my favorite page to visit, but I got the point. And that shame is something that Jesus wants to take away and purify. Now, the book also dealt with something I really liked, which was the starvation, the fast food diet, and the banquet. Really quickly, starvation is taboo. It's, we don't talk about it. We starve ourselves of these physical desires. So what happens? What happens when you tell a holy man of God, like a priest, to not have any sexual desires whatsoever? What happens? God's made him with those desires, and then you destroy that part of his humanity and take away sexuality to be fit to serve God. It tends to lend itself to an environment that is not safe for people. Pastors and secretaries, don't you hear hating those words together? It's the same thing. When we starve ourselves and demonize the flesh, we imbalance the problem the wrong way. We exalt the soul as this beautiful, pure, holy thing, and the body is evil, which is early Gnosticism. And we can't see sex as a way to God, as a means to understand him. We can't see it as worship. It's this disgusting, vile, filthy, earthly act. Wrong. Fast food diet's the other one. Do what feels right. Do what makes you happy. Anyone, do you remember the Tumblr revolution? Do you guys remember Tumblr? Do what makes you happy. Yeah, quit your job. Woo. So it's subjective because it's what makes you happy. And what if what makes you happy harms someone else? There was no fine print there. Do what makes you happy. Do what feels good. What about the pedophile? Is he allowed to do? Is she allowed to do what feels good to them? I don't think so, right? I think we have a problem with that one. What about, sorry to be crude, but the rapist who takes sexuality and distorts it and uses power to coerce and get what they want? In this extreme, sexual desire is everything. It becomes God. When we compromise in the flesh, we're trying to capture something of security, of pleasure, of deep longing. We're just doing it the wrong way. And under all of these things, be it illicit sex or fast food, would you like fries with that? Yes, please. There's a deeper, otherworldly desire. So now I don't demonize my I just see them as a gauge for what's really going on inside. I overfill myself with guilt and try to pray harder and close my eyes harder, worship face pressing in, I just admit, yeah, I'm a mess. That was messed up. This is not good. But without condemnation, I walk in his grace and realize there's something deficient. My lack of mastery over my desire just proves to me that I'm still on my way and I need him. Me not being perfect is the best thing for me. And then we get to the banquet, the feast. I'll finish on this. It is indulgent. The prodigal son, you may have heard the message or the book, The Prodigal Father. The word prodigal means wasteful, but in a good way in a sense. The prodigal son wasted his life. He spent all his money and threw it away, but the prodigal father slaughtered the nice calf, got his beautiful robe and a ring, and he celebrated wastefully to excess, too much. Those big royal weddings, or I think the Beckhams just had one of their kids got married, and it was just like overboard apparently. It's like that, all in. That's the love that's at that banquet that God has for us. And that's the same thing that's happening right now at this table. Literally, not just a metaphor. When we come together, when we eat, when we look eye to eye, when we exchange, we're doing something that the world doesn't even do anymore. And COVID's even accelerated that with Zoom and Skype, if anyone remembers that thing. We have got so much distance between each other that even sexuality is on the decline in so many cultures because people don't know how to relate anymore. There are robots and objects that you can buy to fill those needs. And the sales are going crazy in that department. So he gives us his body. We are sexual beings. He's created us with desires. They can be done in a way that honor and worship him. And I'm not getting into orientations or gender or particular acts, right? There's lots of resources out there, like the book said, and a lot of conversations that you guys can have. And here's the beautiful part. I don't know how to end this, so I'm done. Next week will be the practical part. I've just set it up and I've created this longing in you that will be filled next week. I'm just going to pray. So let's pray. Lord, we thank you for the gift that you give us, the gift of yourself. We are so grateful, and teach us to be more grateful, that we would understand the beauty of the gift that you give us. Not just sexuality and not just the church where we can be ourselves with others and grow, but you, the gift you are. And I pray, Lord, for those listening online and those seated right here now, that you would stir in them a desire for you like they've never had before. That when they look at themselves and what they would say are shortcomings and failures and sins and transgressions and compromise, that you would replace that vocabulary with areas where you want to come and fill them, where you want to fill every desire. And I pray that those desires will be filled, that those here would listen to your call to rise up and to come to you, broken and incomplete and on the way as they are, as we all are. That we would take the invitation to be in you and for you to be in us. Help us make sense of such a complicated and such a simple topic as we really, really strive and empowered in your grace by your Spirit to live the life the way you've called us to live, with purity, with holiness, with righteousness, fulfilled with joy and peace, gladness and love. Bind this community closer together. At the same time, keep their eyes outward, that all would feel welcome here, as I do. In Jesus' name.
Maybe the hand goes up and down.
Nice fellowship meal
Fruitcake.
with a barbecue spaghetti, Filipino spaghetti. Join us. All chickens were covered, so it's hot.
Yummy.
Yeah, I have a perfect like.
Hindi ako kasali
There's
dyan.
one main thing that I haven't really wanted to do, and I managed to book it, but it was so like impossible to book dates because it's something that always gets booked out. This particular place.
The birds are eating. Look at them. Hello. Happy Sunday. This is my friend. Happy Sunday. That's my loud son.
Hi. Hi, vlog.
Hello, vlog.
Hello, world of YouTube.
Eat well, guys.
Us live. Us live.